why does it then look like there is some kind of favoritism going on here? Because today there are reports that just a moment, Honorable Miranda's security aides have been withdrawn. Your security aides,
my brother, what do you mean? When my own security personnel were removed, even when I was not around, without my knowledge, without my consent, did I complain? I did not complain now. And what we are saying, there was a meeting that took place in Marina, where we have in attendance all the party leaders, and openly, and all the members, openly Miranda himself made a statement that she has stepped down and she has resigned. So when you resign from an office, you know, paraphernalia of office will be taken away now. So what are you saying?
So have you resigned too? Because we understand that part of the deal is for you to also resign.
Well, let them bring the letter, and if I've resigned, will I be here?
Well, we are here to discuss that particular issue. We're joined in the studio by Mr. Kayode Suola, who's a research professor of politics at the Institute of African and Diaspora Studies, University of Lagos, right here in our Lagos studio, as well as Mr. Salvation Alibo, public affairs analyst. Gentlemen, good morning.
Welcome. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning. I know there's a big talk about the tussle, Game of Thrones, or Game of Seat, as the case may be, but I want to start from this. The quality of representation, because I want to imagine that the people of Lagos are watching and seeing their representatives. The world is also watching and seeing the quality of representation that is in the Lagos State House of Assembly. So I want you to start from there, from this whole back and forth. What can you say of the quality of representation in the Lagos State Assembly? Is this reflective of the center of excellence that Lagos is set to be? I'll begin with you, sir.
Thank you very much. It's impossible to use just one isolated case to determine the quality of representation. What is happening now is power game, is politicking. And you agree that in democracy, you struggle for power. So if there is a need to struggle for power to be able to represent people, it will be very emotive to, based on that alone, decide or assert that the quality of representation is A or B.
Is it excellent? Does it speak to the center of excellence that Lagos is?
What probably will inform that conclusion is a plethora of activities around governance in Lagos for the past, depending on how long you want to go in history.
Or the lack of it. Because for this period now, there's been a lot of back and forth.
You really need to take all the factors into consideration, not this isolated one.
How do you mean isolated? I don't
know. Because what you see now, as I told you, is just politicking.
So how is it isolated?
It's isolated because you cannot use that alone to determine whether or not the quality of representation in Lagos is apt. That's what I'm saying.
So what is it? What if it's a symptom of real underlying issues, you know, that are there about and form concerns about our representation in Lagos State?
What representation should be, at least theoretically, is to speak the yearnings and aspirations of the people of your constituency, so that their interests will be taken into consideration when policy making comes up. I don't see that trend in what is going on now. Each of the people in crisis are saying, I have the mandate of my people, okay? Those involved in the House as lawmakers also say they are acting on the mandate of their people. Now, how do we verify that to then conclude, based on this issue, that the quality of representation is A or B? I'm just putting a word of caution that in public analysis, we avoid emotion and speak to fact. And the declaration that this alone cannot make us conclude.
So perhaps you also may have to intervene as well on this, because he's also talked about the issue of power, but perhaps my colleague is also re-emphasizing, we've heard Miranda talk, we've heard Obasa talk, we've even heard the person who spoke on behalf of the lawmakers were against Obasa talk. So it exudes a form of perception as to what people may consider quality of representation. Whether that quality of representation has to do with ability to articulate thoughts, ability to bring dividends of democracy, I don't know how you want to weigh your input on this one.
If you're referring to the finese and how they spoke, or the choice of language, or if they spoke the right grammar, okay, I don't think that really should be the judge of the quality of representation, all right, because they are elected to speak on behalf of their people, irrespective of their qualification. It's the ability to hear, understand the yearning of your people, and table it on the house, and to ensure that it is sold to the entire persons representing all other constituencies, so they agree to the yearning of your people. All right, like he pointed out, I don't see how the current trend actually affects the representation of the people at the grassroots, okay? When you are saying quality, in this case, I believe maybe you are referring to the personalities involved, okay? If they really qualify to be able to speak on behalf of their people. My thought is this: as long as you are voted, then you qualify, because the people believe that you have they have your ears, you can speak on their behalf, and you can pass bills on their behalf. What's happening really, in a sense, if I may look at it from the kind of politics we play in this country, is kind of, I want to be there, all right, on behalf of my people. And if you take it, I mean, in this country we say, okay, someone from my place is the vice president, someone from my place is the commissioner. We throw parties when someone from our area is appointed commissioner or minister. Okay, that tells us that our people want our people to be there, all right? So part of representation for the people could be the fact that, oh, my people want me to be the speaker, so I have to be there to ensure that my people are the ones producing the speaker. So
my challenge here is not normalizing what is out of place. Because we just talked about the British Parliament now. We talk about the back and forth they have, but you never hear that there are two people just, someone is leading one plenary, and that person is leading another plenary of 4, and the other of about 20-something or 30 plus. We look at those climbs and we say, oh, they're doing well. But when we come back here, party primaries happen and 3 people are laying claims to just 1 ticket. We can even talk about the traditional institutions as well. Now we're talking about the House of Assembly. There's a Rivers case. Now there is a Lagos case. So yet again, just so we don't normalize, and children are even watching. We saw what played out at the Senate, for example, where there were students at the gallery who had come to monitor proceedings. And then after that, the altercation between the Senate President and Senator Natasha Akpoti-Oduaghan happened. And I was just thinking, what would those children go home with? So I don't want us to normalize what other people would see happening in Nigeria and think, what is going on here? Which is why I ask, is this the best we can do as a people representing constituents, if you get what I mean?
Okay. Okay, I think your question is clearer now. Okay. Is this the best we can do as a people?
No, which I said, the center of excellence. Excellence is the best. The sophistry and
one mistake that we must not make is to think that political standards are universal, to the extent that what you see in the United States is what you're going to see in Japan and is what you're going to see in Africa. There is African politics. De facto, it exists. You may only compare it and say this is better, okay? But African politics exist de facto. And in interrogating African politics, what you see is that crisis of development, because the system in practice is still very, very, extremely young. It is in the process of development. There are no two ways about it, you know. And in the process of development, you must undergo crisis of development. Remember, it never happened in Lagos State that you have this kind of scenario. Perhaps it happened in other places.
So that negates the we're still young theory. Because it didn't happen when Lagos was younger in that sense. It's happening when Lagos is older, if you grab what I mean. So it negates that point.
But we're pivoting, okay? This democracy is about 26 years old. all right? And it's been a bit smooth kind of for Lagos State, all right? And we've come to a point where there's a kind of maturity setting in, or some kind of growing, and then muscles are, tensing up, and then it's time for pivot, okay? So I think after this entire scenario, we'll be seeing a different kind of political engineering in Lagos State. There will be alignment and realignment. I think that's the stage where we are in. Okay, I don't want us to judge our developments by this situation. So we've seen wars in some climes, okay, across some developed nations, but what happens when you are growing is that sometimes you fall back, you have to rise. You make mistakes, you learn from them, and you grow. In this particular scenario, there's a lot about to happen in 2027, okay? Lagos had a bit of zoning and shift, okay? When Ambode, Sanwo-Olu came in, saw Obasa stay for 3 consecutive terms as speaker, and then decisions have been made, whether we like it or not, okay? Earlier we're chatting and we're saying something like, well, there are drummers, definitely, and I said the drummers are not really far. Okay, and at the end of the day, whose drum is loudest is who will be settling for. It's just normal for alignments to happen and realignments, and what you're seeing are probably symptoms of it. Okay, that's.
And just to add quickly to that is that the GAC is at the center of this crisis.
And that's
and
where
this was set
I'm
up
headed.
in 1999. 26 years after, or thereabouts.
It's a powerful non-state actor.
Yeah, but it has to overhaul.
And that's where I'm headed, Prof.
That is how politics
because Kade's question is instructive for a lot of reasons. And, pivoting may be inadequate to tell the true story, because some would say that it's debatable that Lagos has had it smooth. Some would say it has had it smooth because APC has held onto the chokehold. The Lagos governance has been at the chokehold of APC for a very long time. But the inconsistency that we see may not necessarily, I don't know what you think, but does it speak to the representation of the people or the representation of their own interests? I'm talking about the lawmakers themselves now. Because when you see that 4 lawmakers are in plenary presided over by the ousted speaker, and the others are saying, Madam Speaker, speak on. And the GAC, as we have seen, is unable to intervene and resolve this matter in the past 2 weeks or so. So what do you say about the inconsistencies that we're seeing? Prof, I'd like you to weigh in
so
on that.
I now clearly agree with you that there are inconsistencies. I also agree with you that it is quite easy to point to an organization or a structure as not being, proactive enough to avoid this crisis or resolve it, as the case may be. But I also insist, with due respect to Kade's position, that
my question.
Okay. That this isolated case is not enough. And we're explaining now, we're not justifying. We're explaining what is happening and what should happen. It's not enough to determine the quality of representation. Were we to be discussing governance in Lagos State, issues at stake, projects achieved, psychological manipulation of the people and the orientation of the people, then we can have enough data to predict whether or not we have good quality of representation. But I agree with you, for emphasis, that some structure, some organization, some individuals have failed in what they are supposed to do, hence the crisis at hand.
So let's now talk to the issue itself. I listened to Mudashiru Obasa, and it was quite interesting, his perspective. He said they went on a recess. More like he was alluding to the fact that he was perhaps ambushed, just for lack of a better word. There's supposed to be a reconvening of the House he's supposed to be aware of it. And then he said he's not against being removed or being impeached. It has to be done the right way. But if you look at the law of Nigeria, I think section 92, in that subsection, one of the subsections doesn't really give the lawmakers, they don't need a reason. If you ask a lot of lawyers, they can just wake up on the wrong side of the bed. It's not like impeachment for governors, there's a long process. He's saying that there's a southwestern model for removing or whatever I speak and all. I want you to speak to the issue of constitutionality of what is playing out in the Lagos State House of Assembly, because they can interpret whatever they want to interpret. Miranda can stand and say what he wants to do, or Basa can say what he wants to do, but we have a ground norm on how things should be done. So whatever they are doing has to be around the premise of the law.
Okay, I believe he's speaking to the fact that he was accused of high-handedness and some fraud or something, and it was on those bases that he was removed, okay? And he's saying that the process was not followed, maybe referring to, oh, they should have been a petition against him, and then he should have had a fair hearing, and then to third member of the House, or to then vote on the hearing to decide.
But that's not the law.
Well,
that's not the Constitution.
That's maybe what he expected, okay? But as you have spoken to it, you just need majority votes to decide,
resolution.
Yeah, whether you're going to be there or not, okay? But as we already judged by the characters involved, there's a lot of informality about the personalities, okay? So they believe a lot in the kind of, for lack of a better word, parabo, kind of arrangement where we all agree that this is how we run. It's unwritten constitution to say that instead of impeachment, removals, you know, those kind of terms, and then it's going to be the party or the leadership that agrees that, okay, yeah, you're going to step down. And then he says he's not averse to it, he's not going to argue that, but he wants that kind of parabolic arrangement to work for him. All right, so where we all agree that I'm supposed to step down, and he's saying if that is it, if that process is followed, he's going to accept that. Okay,
so in essence, I mean, I will want you to ask your question, but in essence, law is one aspect of life that I hardly ever dangle into. And even the lawyers will tell you that it's very slippery. Law can be interpreted in 1,000,001 ways. 1,000,001
Especially
ways.
in Nigeria.
All over the world.
No, it's
did you see how Trump eventually emerged as American president? In spite of all the court cases and indictments and all this, law is an instrument in the hands of politics. Sadly so, but that's the reality. Behind every law and interpretation of it, there is the politics. And that is why I like the idea of drummers. For the two actors in this crisis, there must have been drummers. We don't know them. We don't have the soothsaying power to know them, but there are drummers. And at the end of the day, it is not unlikely that these two drummers will come together, realign and align again, and then move forward to the next stage in the political history of Lagos State. For me, what is happening is not abnormal. It is necessary in the process of development in Lagos State. What we can only hope is for us to come out better. That's what I think.
So since you speak of drummers, naturally they will be dancers. Instead of well, actors and dancers then. So let's look at the possible drummers, because clearly these things are out in the open. So the president has been mentioned. In fact, one of the front pages says that the governor claims that the governor was denied access to the president twice. It had also been claimed that Mr. Obasa was denied access to the president when he was in Lagos. So there's the president, there's the governor naturally as part of the candidates, possible drummers. There's the GAC, obviously in the open. But some look at what is playing out, particularly with the security detail as we wind down, that accompanied Mr. Obasa and the fact that the security detail of Mr. Miranda was withdrawn and then restored. They recall the DSS coming to the assembly. Eventually, DSS arrested some people who they said that assaulted DSS officials. So the DSS also is in the mix, a candidate for part of the drama. So I don't know what you would call them. So I'd like you to speak to what we've called, I don't know if they're actually victims in this as well, but the security agencies. They're meant to enforce the law. But it's the challenge here now which law they're enforcing or which perspective of the law they're enforcing, because clearly now they're on both sides. So, Mr. Let me come to you first. Yeah, how does this... does it put them in a tricky situation, or are they meant to be the ones...
the security personnel?
Yeah, the security.
Okay. So, this is they are the... executors, okay, of the law, okay, and their responsibility is to carry out orders, okay. So I like to put it like this, that if you're a worker, okay, you just follow instructions. So irrespective of whose ox is God, okay, you just have to do what you were
So
asked to
Inspector
do.
General of Police is giving orders to police to follow
no policeman is going to deploy himself to a location. A location like Lagos State House of Assembly, you cannot wake up and just drive there. Somebody powerful gave you the instruction. Somebody high enough to be obeyed. All right, and what instructions come per time is determined by who is playing at the back end in the game. All right, so an instruction came the first time, there were realignments, and then instruction come again, and then there's now movement. So I don't think in this case they are victims. I think they are just neutral players responding to instructions per time. All right, these instructions are determined by the game that is being played.
Well, we wonder what will be the outcome of the game, particularly if we listen closely to what is also being said by the ousted speaker, that Speaker Miranda has resigned at the meeting, GAC meeting in Marina, and that because of the concern about Miranda coming from the same place as the governor, the reason for the intervention, and then another name is being named from Lagos West as possible replacement. I hate to play the gender card, but don't you think this would be a missed opportunity for
the female?
Yeah, for the female. That's on the one hand, and is it a sacrifice on the altar of origin rather than merit? What are your thoughts, Prof?
I agree with you on this gender card issue.
You've been agreeing with Bukola a lot.
I don't see man-woman dichotomy when I see politics. I see you as a person, what you can do, where you can get to. I don't want to be involved in whether it's a woman who is taking over and a woman. No. Is the person qualified? One. Two, is the person respecting the political permutation of the state? Because I read somewhere, I don't want to believe it, but it gives some insight to the analysis, that even when President Tinubu, as the leader of the party and the hegemonic personality of Lagos politics, is not in support of the outside speaker, well, the speaker, Obasa, for certain reason, is also not well disposed to his removal, again, for certain political reasons. Maybe in terms of representation, in terms of zoning, in terms of everything. What that tells you is that political decisions are very complex. Right? There are so many factors that we don't see as observers, as commentators, that the politicians must take into consideration before they decide. And that is why I am not often very comfortable making sweeping declarations. You must take several factors into consideration. And that's exactly what is going on.
Interesting points there, and we have to thank you so much, Mr. Kayode Iswola, Research Professor of Politics at the Institute of African and Diaspora Studies, University of Lagos, as well as Mr. Salvation Alibo, Public Affairs Analyst. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, guys.
Enlightening. Thank you.
We can only wish Lagos State the best. It will come on.
Everybody will be fine.
No, finally we will.
Everybody will be fine.
In the end, we'll be fine.
Oh, wow.